Call the court back into regular session. We are meeting this afternoon, more of a budget workshop, trying to determine what, where, and how we can make the reductions that are going to be necessary to provide the Department of Local Government with a balanced budget. Some of the reductions that we've talked about, and we'll open the floor for any discussion. One of the areas, the PVA has a person retiring, which is paid for by the county rather than the state. If we did not refill that position, I believe, Emily, you said it would be a savings of $27,435. Is that correct?
Yes, just on the salaries. That would not include the fringe.
Okay.
The fringe would add additional savings.
We looked at our county paving again, and these are some of the things we went over last Friday. Reducing our paving again. We reduced it last year, and reducing that again by $300,000, which would take it from $800,000 to $500,000, which is a savings of $300,000. We also looked at, Russell had asked to put $100,000 into the budget for salt. That was more of a precautionary measure because we were fortunate this year and we have a barn full of salt. So if we eliminate that, that's another $100,000. And then on equipment, Russell had asked for $250,000.
Yes, sir.
We reduced that by $100,000. Try to get by, which is another $100,000. So there's $500,000 we've taken out of the road department, and that's about what we took out last year, and that is about, I mean, if that's what you want to do, but that's stretching your maintenance program to the very limit. Now, I talked to Mark Harrison the other day. Russell is needing a utility truck. The county bought a truck, actually, I guess it was for Mark. The county owns it. It has 60,000 miles on it. Mark is retiring. It's in good shape. And I put Mark on notice that probably we would need to recall that truck. If the hospital wants to buy a truck for the new director, that's fine. But we could certainly use that truck as a utility truck, which is one of the items that Russell needed. 60,000 miles is not a lot on a truck of what size is it, Jeff? Do you know?
That's a 3/4 ton Dodge.
Judge, I think the only issue with that is that part of their recovery plan after the ice storm was for a lot of these agencies to have four-wheel drive vehicles, and removal of that would be.
Well, that's up to the hospital. They run the ambulance service now, and since
I thought we
you
do
know,
capital equipment though.
we buy the ambulances and we give them a subsidy, which I think it's time we renegotiated that. But I don't see we're obligated to leave that truck there at all, when we could use it in other ways.
I'm all for using it however we can. I would just hate to leave them without the ability to to utilize that truck. I know they utilize it for certain things. I just wanna make sure that they have what they need.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many times it's been utilized.
I'm
Mark
just
said,
going off
well,
what
we
they say.
pulled the
The trailers.
smoke trailers with it, but Russell tells me we've done that for them as well with the road department, so we can do that, the road department, or they also have a truck at the rescue squad that they use for that purpose.
I mean, before we would transfer, I would just wanna make sure we have a plan in place to cover any needs that they might have. That would just be my only concern.
What other suggestions do y'all have?
Aside from the sheet that,
From what well, these are just the three items I've mentioned. The others are just there for your discussion. What are your thoughts?
go through my little list here.
The refuse budget, approving that does assist us in trying to get better balanced. What that does is it keeps our $200,000 expenditure in there, but we would add a $200,000 receipts line item in there to cancel that 200,000 out because it's just a loan.
It'll be a loan
So it'd only be
instead
a
of a
temporary
subsidy.
expense. It would not be an actual expense.
It would be an in and out, so we could show that.
They'd be able to pay it back.
Yes.
Well, we'd hope,
After,
That's,
yes.
that's what I'm,
but we'd hope, yeah.
I mean, that only works if it's paid back.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that's what their understanding is, that come November or December, when they get tax money in, that they would be repaid.
when we talked about this, the paving dollars, we were bouncing around here, it's not clear what, in this budget, we've got a line item for the state paid paving, $274,000, and it appears that causes us more of an, to put us out even farther on our budget, but that's really not an expense, is it? That's an
Right,
in
it's
and
just
an
a
out.
wash, yes.
It's a
Yeah,
wash.
they
We pay it, they reimburse us.
And isn't that a $274,000 that's showing up here as a deficit?
But it's also in the receipt side.
It's on the
It is
receipt
on the
side as
receipt
well.
side?
Now, also, Bob, some of the paving, they didn't get finished last year.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna finish up. Of course, we haven't billed them for it because the work hasn't been done.
Right.
Well, we talked about the, tanks going in at the sheriff's office. That's an estimated $17,000 in savings, the gas or the fuel tanks. Just based off the fuel usage from last year and based off the reductions that the road department sees in their fuel costs.
But that won't reflect into our budget. It will reflect into Kevin's.
Which would then reflect into ours because we're subsidizing. I mean, I'm
But
sure
our
he,
subsidy wouldn't be reduced. It'd be a set quarterly payment, and it would only be recouped with excess fees being turned over to us.
will we not amend a subsidy if he had I mean, part of what we're doing is paying for fuel cost increases, right? Right.
Yes.
Well,
So
we,
If we can find $100,000, or let's just say for sake of argument, then we could reduce his subsidy by $100,000.
Right, correct.
how much, and I don't know,
I mean, whatever.
Russell will be here in a minute, maybe he can tell us, what will it cost to be compliant?
They said this morning about 3,000 on the fuel tanks. Is that what they were saying this morning?
Well, if we put it
3 to 4.
back there behind the building that Roger has, and it's a double wall tank, then there's not any kind of retaining walls or anything like that that needs to be put up for EPA purposes, because it's more or less built into the tank itself. And if we can get it at rack price, what he's getting it at, then we're talking anywhere from 40 to 50 cents cheaper per gallon than what I'm paying for it right now.
But I thought, Kevin, anytime we had fuel tanks like that, you had to build those.
No, if it's a double wall tank, now I'm going on what Bob's telling me.
Single wall tank, that's the case, but now they're building these double skin tanks with overflow protection, they call it. So if they overflow that, it just runs down into a cavity inside the tank and they can recover that then later. So that's supposed to meet the BMP requirements, that's supposed to meet all that. Now, you can go, the other thing you can do is stay under 660-gallon tanks. Anything under 660 doesn't fall under the regulation. So it's an either or, but if you do the double wall tanks, they're supposed to meet the requirement. And I
Really?
think Barrett confirmed that, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably looking, Randy Barrett's supposed to be getting me some numbers together on what it would cost for the tank, the metered pump. And supposed to meet me probably in the next week or so out there to look to see what it would take as far as the electrical hookups off of Rogers Building. Because that's where the power would come from, off of Rogers Building, to see, see if it'd be viable to put it there.
Are these overhead tanks, Kevin?
No,
Or
no,
They
it'll
just sit
sit
right on the
on the
ground?
ground, yeah.
Sits on a skid.
Skid?
Yeah, on a
Yep.
skid, yeah.
Okay.
Put electric out there and have a little electric pump with a meter on it.
And like I said, if I can get it at the rack price that he's getting it at, and like I said, last time I checked with him, it's 40 to 50 cents cheaper than what I'm paying right now
Yeah.
with our Fleet One card.
What was a bid today,
It was 12 cents over rack price.
which is a little higher than last year, right?
No, I think it's the same.
Really?
Same
I
as
believe it's the
Same as last
same,
year?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. See, I'd always assumed, I didn't know these new tanks they come out with, because they got on us.
Oh, yeah.
Every
They
time we
will.
tried to do anything, we had to build a new
Containment.
containment
Exactly.
area.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real possibility that I'm really looking into, and I'm gonna,
You
Go
don't
with
know what
this.
those tanks will cost, Kevin? Does he give you a
Randy
ballpark?
give me an estimate, everything included, anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000. He said that's a ballpark figure. That's what it would cost to put a tank in. Still, that's a
How
lot.
many gallons?
1,120 gallon tank.
pay for itself in the first 3 months.
I would think so.
Well, we've got that. We've got the phone proposal that they gave us yesterday, and I know that's not immediate, but the longer we wait, the more we're out monthly. So allocating a little bit of money up front means, and what Andy said was an $8,000 a month return to the county on going to the new phone system. And it may be somewhere in here.
Hold on just a minute now. Let's back up on. Go over that again. I mean, I heard him talking about a new phone system and looking into it. He's got figures and everything already put together.
He said it's approximately 60,000, high 50s, 60,000 a year savings to convert over in monthly savings by consolidating all the county's phone services to the new data lines.
His proposal's 50,000, that we'd
Is it
save
50?
approximately
50, yeah.
$4,000 a month.
And the cost to do this?
His put in his budget $75,000. He really thinks he can come in under that, closer to 65, but you don't wanna cut
Yeah.
yourself
Well,
short
it'll
when
be a
something
payout.
that you're not.
It won't be a payout till the next budget period.
Right, right, because it'll take, he said it takes 4 to 6 months. It's gonna take him a little bit of time to prepare for it, then it takes 4 to 6 months to install, then your changeover would happen, so it's gonna be, at best, you'd get a half a fiscal year's worth of savings out of it.
So that was one thing. And then I didn't see in our funds, it may be somewhere in here, Emily, I didn't see it, the
Sure.
Reimbursement on county planner salary from North Marshall Water District. Is that reflected in our funds?
It is in receipts under 4727.
You talking about Water Vision 2020 or the county planner?
Well, his salary is increased in the county
and-
planner
and
line.
It is, Bobby, I have him posted underneath the county planner appropriation number. That is not his title, however. But it is bulked underneath, 4727 in the general fund. And it says Magic PVA. I should probably change that because that is North Marshall Water. That's what PVA reimburses us, and Magic.
That'd be helpful. Yeah, that
GIS.
way it's reflected in a line item, because I
Yeah.
hadn't found that.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we had talked about.
Kevin, I guess we talked about the COPS program. Is that something we're applying
We've done applied
Potentially.
for it.
for a grant? When would we know that?
It's probably June.
That's
That's,
something that would that allow us to reduce your subsidy if we get a couple of officers covered by that?
so we're gonna cover one.
Just gonna be one.
That's it. with the formula that we had to put in, all the numbers and whatnot, one's all it's gonna cover.
Maybe $50,000.
Does that cover, what does that cover?
75% of the salary.
And benefits?
And
And
benefits,
benefits.
yeah, he confirmed it
So,
was benefits.
$45,000 approximately. It's about 61 to 65 for a person, I think, on the average right now.
Roughly. But like I said, I won't know that till sometime in June, because it actually is for the fiscal year of 12-13 is where that money's coming from, so I won't know till June if we're awarded.
Judge, I know we talked about the personnel issue earlier, and I noticed in our budget on page 6 of 38, we have a $57,300 increase in the cost of maintenance salaries. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's special projects crew. Is that right, Emily?
Yes.
I would propose that we consider moving one of those people, because we had 4 for a long time, and I think we sort of didn't really need the 5th one necessarily, but we found a place to place someone. And if one of those guys or someone else in another entity, if we could do some shifting among entities to use another person from somewhere and reduce that number back to 4, perhaps, and put that person in the park in lieu of hiring one that we talked about earlier. That would save quite a lot of money. And I don't know, you might need to talk to Tech about that, but I know we had 4 for a long, long time. If they could manage with 4 again, then there's an entire salary of about $61,000 to $65,000 that we could save by cutting that back to 4, and utilizing, and if no one on the special projects crew wanted to go to the park, maybe they could go to another entity and someone else could go to the park. We might could shift around where we'd save an entire salary and benefits.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. We'll look at it. I'll sit down with Tech. Now, again, you have one of your special projects crew that's been off on medical. I don't know, when
It's still unknown. We haven't gotten
We
any
don't know
FMLA paperwork back on
Jack
that
yet.
employee.
Jack had surgery, and I guess going through rehab.
And
So
They
we,
won't release him. till-
Considering the issues at hand, I would still recommend, even knowing that, I would still recommend we proceed with that possibility, because we need to.
well, wherever we might get it from, is that
Right.
what, that's,
I mean, he may come back and he may not. If he doesn't, we would consider at that point in time of replacing him or not. But I think for the time being, we could even go down to 3 people temporarily. And if we found that to be a problem, we'd deal with that then. But I think there's $61,000 to $65,000 right there that we can save.
Yeah, the salary at the park with fringe is 61,000.
Yeah.
It's a matter of trying to get, sort through this as best we can without laying anybody off. I know that's a bad word, but I mean, there's certainly when you get down to looking at all the savings,
But as you and I talked about, Bob,
salaries are, they're a big portion of it.
when we first started 5 years ago, we talked about reducing the number of the workforce, and
Yep.
we knew that would be the place we could save the most money. And again, I propose that we do that here,
Yep.
because here's an
We need to
opportunity
continue.
to shuffle people within the workforce and not hire additional person. We're not laying anyone off.
It's like we did at the judicial building. We've lost a worker there, but
Right.
they've just kind of picked up the slack. And
And then certainly voluntary, I'm not sure there wouldn't be, there's not folks out there that might take a voluntary layoff. That would just be pleased to take a voluntary layoff. I don't know, but it certainly is a question we need to pose to everyone, because every time, salaries again, is absolutely what saves the most money.
Yeah, that's, salaries and fringe consume 58% of the budget. And
Absolutely.
If we do manage to pull this off without any layoffs, then the next year we're still
You're right
scrambling
back.
to cover the addition of any raise and any increase in fringe that the increase in fringe is out of our control. Health insurance is gonna go up and retirement's gonna go up, but we're gonna be scrambling to cover that. with
Well,
something else.
I think we need to develop, which we had in the sheriff's office and in the police station through our accreditation, but I think we need to develop a 3 and a 5-year plan to where we're gonna be in those times, and I think we need to work toward those things, and one possibility through attrition, again, by shuffling employees every opportunity we have, I would propose that we start thinking about the possibility of contracting all of our mowing in our parks. I don't know that can be done. I don't know how much we could save, if any, but we need to be looking at that. I think there's a possibility that that would work.
We contract everything now but the main park,
Main
right there.
park.
We contract everything, all the day use parks and everything else is
We've
by
saved-
contract now.
Yeah, we've saved quite a bit, quite a few dollars so
Yeah,
far, with that,
And
just
that way
that
we-
one change.
If we get to a point through attrition that we wouldn't have to lay people off, we could shift them about. But those are the things gonna take more than planning today. We're gonna have to plan for next year and the next year to achieve those goals, but we need to start looking at those things now.
Yes, that's why, I mean, I think it's very important that we get not only balance, but we need to get a healthy reserve in place that is basically untouchable. Because without that, we're gonna continue to have these problems.
We also, again, in the road department, and we just seem to keep hitting the road department, we reduced, from a projection of 150, to 100 for another $50,000 savings there. Now, hopefully, you know, we won't have a need, but, you never know.
Judge, I know we also, just for clarity, we had, the last meeting, I think, announced that we'd put the person that was on the workers program, I forget the name of the exact program, but federal program, now they've placed them on full-time on county payroll, but we are anticipating a retirement. And I think that was a lot of the things that was on the minds of a lot of the people on the board, that we did that because this person was already working there and had been there for a couple of years or so, and we
Well, he's
kept.
been working on that operation, flood money. Been there, how many months?
6 months.
6 months. We are still short at the road department, about what, 3, Russell? From what you was, you're
Right.
three short. And we keep looking, you know, there's gotta be other places to reduce instead of everything coming out of the road department. I don't, have we got somebody that's gonna retire, Terry, that, coming up?
I was told there's somebody that's,
I've heard rumor that there's one may retire this.
Okay, well,
this
that's-
summer,
yeah.
September, August, September. Don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it from him, but I've heard it from some of the workers
Yeah.
out there that he had talked about it, so.
Well, of course, we've talked about, you know, as we do have layoffs, try to see if we can make it without,
that's the thing. I don't know what
Replacing,
those
but we've
numbers,
already-
you know, I don't know what our numbers are gonna be going forward in any department, you know, we're gonna just have to look at everything and, you know, I mean, and that's not gonna be on, it just may be that we don't get to fix a patch of road as quick as we have in the past, or
We just have to pick the fruit where it's hanging, that's the only choice we have.
Yep.
You know?
well, there's choices, there's,
always.
what I'm just saying, there's other departments that we need to look at, because you delay maintenance for over a period of time, then your road situation and your road program gets into dear trouble. And, we're fast approaching that. The summer program, that's $26,700. We had cut it back last year, but you had talked about eliminating that. Have you thought more about that? That's a 26.7 savings.
I would hate to eliminate it if we could utilize those persons, especially in departments like the road department that's still short on people versus hiring somebody, but obviously it's on the cutting board like everything else is, but,
What'd we figure in with 17.4?
17.4 is for those 10 slots. And then, we have a floater here in the courthouse that is approximately $10,000. And your 17.4 with your fringe is 18.7 is what the total summer program, if you had 10 slots, would cost.
Other ideas?
I noticed that, I know we're down on inmates at the jail, but we've got a $15,000 increase in food. I'm not really sure if that's something that we could look at, but it would reason that if we're down on inmates, our food costs should be down. I know our clothing is gonna be down, so I'm not really sure why we have a increase of that magnitude unless food costs are substantially going up due to fuel costs, that could be, but 15,000 is quite a jump in that. And then an $8,000 budgeted utility increase at the jail as well, that may be just some,
And that, the jail gets that entire complex's utilities.
so they pay for the whole
They
thing.
get-
But
yeah.
I'm not sure why there would be that much of a jump, and
Well,
that's just comparing it to other people's
Right.
projected increases.
right. I think it was probably slightly under budgeted before, and then they had some issues. I can re-look at that closer, because they had a leak that they had repaired. But then I don't quite understand, and Tekken Brock's not here, but there's something to do with some type of, when they made that repair, something to do with the judicial center and linking up, or maybe it's the Class D, I'm not sure, but I think their meter started feeding more area.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not 100% on that, but
It should be with a Class D and not the judicial. I
there
wouldn't
was
think they're,
something when they made that repair.
they're not
and
hooked, are they,
I'm,
Kevin?
Not to my
to be
knowledge,
quite
they ain't.
honest,
The judicial's separate.
really
I
right.
can see,
Yeah, it's
I
completely
can see
separate.
we
Class
need
D,
to know what
you
meter
and
feeds what.
the
It's
jail
not-
all being together, but we'll look into it.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of maybe is the tunnel that connects the two,
You know, that,
you know, but I don't know where the power feeds off of that.
no.
But from my understanding, the judicial building's on its own separate power source.
Separate generator.
Yeah, it's on a separate generator, but, so I'm assuming that.
See, then in the judicial building, we've got our custodial and maintenance salaries, that's broken out, and then we've got maintenance, building and grounds, so I wasn't really sure what that 30,000 is for.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at
Under,
Rogers Food and see.
Copy of that, what you got there.
This is Rogers. Okay, I'm sorry, Misty, what were you saying?
The custodial and maintenance salaries underneath the judicial are separate, and I'm assuming that's our, cleaning staff.
Correct?
Then below that is maintenance, building and grounds,
Yes.
that is,
Maintaining the building, that's the elevator has like a maintenance agreement, it's just costs of maintaining that building.
okay, and so there's no, that's not
That's pretty much the actual cost.
I did not print out the entire expenditure ledger, cause it's about 1,500 pages. But yeah, that usually, I looked at it all and it was right on track to stay the same, but it's really close to actual cost.
And then I think down below the maintenance equipment, from what I understood from Ricky, I know he's gonna have to have a washer and dryer, I think he estimated that to be about 2, and then rugs, maybe another 3, he estimated that would be like a every 10-year expense.
Correct.
But for some reason, I'm thinking that should be like 5,000 instead of 10.
I'm just going by what Ricky had said,
I know.
3,000.
I'm thinking there might be a I think that might be an error, is what I'm
Instead of
saying.
3, it needs to be 5.
I think instead of
on
the
the
10, it
equipment.
needs to be 5, the maintenance equipment. And it's just 5,000, but still 5,000 here, 5,000 there, I think. And that
I'm
would
sorry,
be every
I'm
10
not-
years.
Where's, what's the line item number?
50877210. It went
Okay, that's 1,000, and that's Roy's maintenance equipment.
from 1 to 10.
No,
No, it was 1 last
1,000.
year.
It says
State one.
10,000. With a $9,000
You're-
increase.
Yeah, we're looking at different. That may just be my my spreadsheets. This links to this, listens to this. So,
I'm not sure what in that building would require $10,000 in maintenance equipment, I guess is what I'm saying, whether it was Roy or Ricky.
yeah, let me look at that because I think that's a problem with the spreadsheet.
Okay, because I think
Because
that's,
I have 1,000 on the department sheets.
Mm-hmm.
It is just at 1,000.
okay.
I don't even have that sheet in here. I've got the PVA on that.
That's Andy's.
It's all in your stuff.
Something else I think we can do is we can reduce occupational tax refunds by 150,000, and that's still I feel like being fairly conservative. We found out that Westlake's Kira agreement with the state that has local incentive has expired, and so normally we give them back between $45,000 and $47,000 each quarter in occupational tax money, and that will expire. So I
It's
think-
already expired. We don't have to do
Yeah.
that anymore.
So, I think if we budget, if I reduce that by 150,000, I think that's still a conservative amount.
We also, in the last several budgets, have budgeted $80,000 and the city of Calvert budgets $80,000 for the Port Authority. That, I've talked to Mayor Jones and to members of the committee and Josh, and we feel like we can forego that payment for 1 year. Lynn is in agreement that the city and the county forego 1 year's payment, which is $80,000. Now, that's just a 1 year reprieve. And certainly it would have to go back in next year's budget, because once, we feel like we've got the money now to pay the salaries, to do the things we need to do, our attorneys, that sort of thing. We're pretty well caught up on our engineering fees. Josh, is that correct? We're not-
The time being for all the projects that we've completed, yes.
Right. So we'll take that out.
And what about, I know this is something you all addressed before I came on board, but the take-home vehicles for county personnel who are in non-supervisory capacity. What about looking at a reduction of that, especially with gas prices at $4 a gallon? I mean, somebody like Russell, I think, needs to have a take-home vehicle, but
Are we talking about all county vehicles?
I guess it would just be on the board to look at them and see what purpose they serve and who's taking them home. And
I mean, that's fine with me. We can,
I mean, like the sheriff's office, they take theirs home because they a lot of times go on duty from their house when they take a call, depending on the shift overlap, to keep somebody else from going into overtime. But you all put a policy in, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago where they didn't use those vehicles for anything. There's no personal use, there's nothing like that. So you have people going from the office to home, that sort of thing. But most everybody else goes to a county office, unless I'm not right on that. They go to a county office and then they start their day's work from there, so that may be a way to,
how many people do you have, Russell, take trucks home?
3, counting myself.
And are those the ones you call out at night?
It's John for signs, and Frankie and myself.
So there's a reason
You know, John's the only one that wouldn't be supervisory.
Right.
I guess what I'm asking, is that like an emergency situation? Is that something that they would have to,
Well, we just, a long time ago, they decided to be a whole lot quicker response time and everything. If, you know, if you needed to get something closed or stop sign put back up or whatever.
and where else do we have them going home from?
Larry Witt has one, Gary Teckenbrock, Russell, Frankie, and John, and then Melissa Combs.
I mean, I can see a couple of them. I guess others I would question, but
We got some at the refuge district too, don't we? 33 or 4?
Yeah, that's two. I believe Hare has one, and
Yeah,
John.
two. Which,
But
mean-
that's in their budget.
I'm
I
like,
mean,
well, I mean, that's a good
it's
example.
a-
Would there be a need for like a recycling manager to take a vehicle home? I mean, I'm just, like I said, I mean, everything's on the table here. We're
sure.
just looking at everything. Those sorts of things are, you know, like, you know, Gary, he's over special projects crew. I'm not sure, is there an emergency situation? Maybe, I don't know. But, it would be worth looking at, I guess, in our 5-year plan and just seeing what that's costing. At least knowing what the cost is and saying, is it worth it? You know, like what Russell said, to have somebody available to repair a sign a little quicker or something. Just be able to cost it out and see if it's of value.
You know, that's something I guess I'm not sure as to. I mean, I guess I can find out where they live and multiply that out. You know what I mean? Multiply that out as to. But I don't have any idea how much gas.
Well, it's like a lot of other things. It's kind of one of those things that we've always done, but when you really start looking at cutting $2 million out of a budget, you know,
Well,
that's a,
of course, that's, I don't know what the savings would be. Obviously, there'd be some. I don't know how many units do you have, Kevin? I mean, do some of your court security officers have cars?
Yeah, they do. Because there's at times they're required to leave their house and go directly to pick up prisoners to be at court that day. That's the
Yeah,
reason
but
why
they
we
know
do
in
that.
advance on that, right?
Yeah, and that's just about an everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say somewhere in the neighborhood of, somewhere right around between 27, 28 vehicles. Now, we do have some we do have that's for the sheriff's office that we don't use that often, but, you know, as far as something that's used on a daily basis, it's somewhere between 27, 28 vehicles.
so, once again, it
And
might be worth just
roughly,
having
me
a,
doing the numbers on it, it's about $9,000 a year per person, per car. It's what we're costing fuel.
might be worth just looking at and putting a number to it and seeing what it is. What about the housing of juveniles? We went from 0 to 10,000.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, what's,
We don't control that. See, that's something that,
Well,
That's
we
some-
apparently weren't housing any, and now we are.
but that's something we can't control.
Right. That's all.
We're paying the detention center in Paducah to house them?
Oh, yeah, we have to
Yeah.
pay them. They bill us monthly.
Okay.
And it's something like, how much a day? Is it- Y'all remember?
Almost $100, I think.
Well, whenever
$100 a day.
And we
No.
kept
I can't do
them
that.
before they made it
believe
was
it is.
$100 a day that Roger got for housing them from the state.
I'll have to look back, but
I think it's
that's something
something-
that the district court, the juvenile court,
we're required to do.
yeah, we just have to pay it. That's,
Yeah, just like the guardianship.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something that we get handed.
What about, I know Terry made this proposal, I've just kind of been making notes as we've gone along talking about, but, the refuse closing on holidays, basically just to conserve a little bit more out there. I think most people don't expect them to be open on Christmas, but I think they have been.
I believe they have, I mean, I
Closing?
think, yeah,
I thought that-
Did they
I think-
start
Yeah.
closing?
I
They
think
close
started.
Christmas Day,
Yeah.
they open New Year's Day
Close
because
about
you get a ton of garbage on New Year's Day.
We closed 3 times, I believe, in a year. When we closed, what, 11? Well, actually, we're closed more than, we have 11 holidays, but we close like 13. Like some of them have 2 days, don't they? Christmas, New Year's, and Thanksgiving. We maybe have 14 days. But I suggested that to them before, that they could
I
save quite a bit if they
thought
would.
they had been, but I mean, I'm not,
And I couldn't
Well, we
confirm that.
watched out there, and there was times that there would be like 2 and 3 customers on a holiday.
Mhm.
And
I know their overtime has gone down quite a bit.
Yes.
Of course, New Year's is a day a lot of people take all their Christmas stuff, you know, and
Right.
that's a busy time. Others,
I think
I'm
there
not
were
so
some
sure.
the holidays worked around Christmas time. I don't know exactly when, but I know when Danny and I were looking at their budget,
But they could, New Year's, they could wait one more day too, you know,
Well, they could, but
if we have.
if they go
it's
out
gonna
there and we're
save us a lot of
closed, I'm
money.
afraid we're gonna see it a lot of on the side of the road.
Well, if we,
You know,
we need to let them know it.
Yeah.
I mean, that needs to be, let people know the days that they will be will be closed. On those holidays, so. I just think they could, some of those they could probably cut back on and help. Then that wouldn't be as likely that we'd have to subsidize them
Well,
as
but-
often,
I mean,
as much.
and we're
That's
not,
not- we're not.
this year, we're not technically subsidizing them any. We're gonna loan them some money and then they're gonna pay us back.
We hope. They may not.
just depends on if they have the money.
That's what I'm saying. It's could be something unforeseen that they couldn't.
That's
Or
true.
they may
That's
have,
the same
they may
with
have
me.
to be up here like anybody else saying, well, we you know, we got a situation we can't deal with.
I mean, if you all aren't comfortable with that, I don't have to put that receipt in there. I'd rather not overinflate our receipts if you don't.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they will if they can, but they might not be able to. There might be something happen that they couldn't, but we may have to subsidize them. That's my concern of them being as prudent as they possibly can at all times, because you never know what might happen that we may have to help.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd want them to be doing all they could if we're having to
Correct,
subsidize.
yeah.
Same with all of them. We need to all do the same thing.
911 reserves, have you talked to Luby?
I did, 911 is the only fund that has reserves, and their reserves have grown. And I had talked to Luby thinking, you know, that maybe we could cut that back a little bit for this fiscal year. But he did tell me that what they're kind of working towards is they have a phone controller that is kind of like our phones. It's old, but it's a workhorse, and it's not going down, you know, it's working currently. But if they don't have parts for it, it's not going to be easy to replace. But to replace that is about $175,000. So that's what they're trying to build those reserves towards. So
It's an expense that controller is old enough now
Yeah.
that, there's no one out there that knows how to repair it.
I'm not sure that.
So if it ever goes down, we're in bad shape. But it's one of those that it just keeps on going and keeps on going, but eventually it's gonna wear out. And, to get updated to the new technologies, and of course, there's mandates being put in place that we're gonna have to be next gen capable, which is, you know, the texting, all that kind of stuff, and this new controller will be able to do that, whereas now we can't.
Can they even get parts for the
No.
one we've got now, Kevin?
No.
Yeah, he
It's-
said
it's-
that
it's
if
that
they
obsolete.
do, that you find an old one that somebody's
Yeah.
not using or something,
Oh.
that you can't order new parts.
Oh, okay.
So I think if we cut that subsidy, you lengthen the amount of time that it's gonna take them to be able to replace
Get
it.
it.
Where if we don't feasibly, at the rate their subsidy is increasing next year, they might be able to do that.
And of course, CMRS, I mean, the grants and stuff are just pretty much gone. They don't have any monies for grants anymore, just about it. And because Luby looks at trying to apply for stuff like that, and it's just not there anymore like it was at one time.
What about a countywide bid on things like cleaning supplies? Everybody seems to do their own thing, and it varies greatly in the projected amount of increase. And so I'm not sure why that's, I wouldn't assume that cleaning supplies from one year to the next would have a great variance, but I guess I would wonder if we were to bid that out, would we not get a better deal for everybody?
We talked about it one time, having a centralized purchasing agent. And that would, you know, if somebody needed something and you'd poll the other departments and determine if they needed it also, and then possibly then buy it in larger quantities.
I could definitely see the,
Even down to vehicles or, you know,
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
that you needed, but cleaning supplies and whatever else. But we never have gone forward with it. I mean, we determined that there would possibly be another salary involved,
Right.
and
yeah, that's not something we can take over.
unless there's someone that can take it over.
The guy that I use for all our cleaning supplies, he's a whole lot cheaper than anybody I've ever
Supply
tried to get
Solutions?
stuff, yes.
He is cheaper. In fact, City of Denton just transferred from who they were using to
And,
him.
and his products are just as good as anybody's.
Who
We just
is
went
it?
to Supply Solutions at the park.
Yeah, well, I think he asked how to come talk to your
Supply
board.
Supply
Yes.
Solutions,
He's saving everybody quite a bit of money. But countywide, that could add up to a lot. And I know we're talking about things that are 5, 10, 15, 20, but you add it all up and it adds up quick. Office supplies is another thing. I know you guys use Howard Be Happy up here, but I don't know if everybody does, but there's great variances in that. In everybody's budget this year. I mean, some people go up 4,000, some people go up 9,000, and it's
How do you buy
hard
your paper?
to know what that's
Do you
for.
buy it from Howard D. Happy?
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what we do. We buy a pallet at a time from Holly. It's a whole lot cheaper doing
We
it that
got the
way.
last, 2 cases from Holly. We liked it.
Like I said, a pallet, your price goes way down on per box. And that's who
And
we
that would be
use.
something you could purchase
Exactly.
that's one thing you could purchase and possibly come up with
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of room we've got, but we've
Right.
got that building out there by the road department that may have some room where we could,
Pallet at their place. All we do is call them and say, we need so many boxes, and they deliver it to us, and that's all included in the price. We
well,
don't even
that'd
have
be
to house
simple
it.
enough then. You wouldn't have to have storage for it.
I mean, I think bidding things like that are fine. It is hard. I don't know how we adjust our budget to how we can put a number on that much savings and how we adjust it down.
Just save it during the year and see what you've
Look at
got
it
at the
next year.
end of the end of the fiscal year.
That's why we did that, because we use so much paper down there, because not only the sheriff's office, but we supply 911 with the paper, because the NCIC and all that actually belongs to the sheriff's office, and, you know, we do criminal, histories and, you know, all the driver's license, 28s, the tags and stuff, so.
Well, keep in mind, when Andy gets the new data network set up, every department will be networked in a way that you could have a centralized ordering system, basically that would just have to be monitored. Nobody would really have to admin it. It could be monitored, and it would network each of these departments, and then you could go through your supply purchases, your requests, put in a purchase request, that sort of thing. I don't know that you'd even have to have somebody full-time, maybe somebody just part-time that could kind of go through the orders weekly, but that networking ability is gonna change the landscape of everything, and the savings are gonna be far and beyond just what we're talking about here. But, again, it's not overnight, but it is within the foreseeable future.
Like I said, we looked at that paper thing. I can't remember how many boxes for sure is on a pallet, but the amount of paper we used in a year's time was like 1.5 boxes shy of a whole pallet. So, to me, that was a no-brainer to do that.
And Larry, you said, I love what you all are doing out at the park. You've got an idea to kind of change the way your workforce runs. Do you think there's a potential there to save another 20,000 in discussing changing the shifts that I guess annually the way they work? Is there a potential there
Well, just
without?
like the shift that I need now, you know, we could easily, you know, I need to put on a 12 to 8:30 that covers when we're busy, we have our ball games or tournaments, which is when we have more people in the park. Cover those shifts and be an 8-month job and have a layoff of 4 months in the winter. Save anywhere from $18,000 to $25,000 there.
I would love to see us do what the state does, and I've talked to Emily about it, but the state puts out financial incentives for their employees who come up with the biggest money-saving ideas. And she said she's not sure how you would allocate that incentive, but what other states have done is they've had private businesses sponsor those incentives. So if you had $1,000 for the biggest money-saving incentive idea for the year, then that business would sponsor it, but it gives employees a way to have buy-in, like what you and your board have done. You've saved feasibly $40,000 in 1 year just by changing the way you work your shifts.
Practically cut out. Emily probably knows more.
Yeah, I think we
$10,000 and
reduced-
$15,000 in overtime just by the shifts that I've run.
So that's even more. It's a potential for almost
We've incorporated,
60,000.
like the job that I have is incorporated, we don't have a maintenance supervisor, which was a $50,000 a year job that we don't have now that's incorporated into mine, so
And
we
you
saved
contracted
that.
mowing. So
We contracted
basically
mowing.
$100,000 potential savings within the first year. And those
Right.
are the kinds of things that you all know being out there in the departments. And I think it'd be good if we offered some sort of an incentive. And if we can't offer it directly, then maybe find businesses in the community who are willing to sponsor those incentives for employees, because it gets people thinking about how they can save money. And you all have done a great job out there of doing that. So hopefully other people will follow suit.
Emily, I noticed about almost a 50% decrease in their interest drawn.
It's because we have much less money in the bank. And the interest rates are
That
down
much
from what
less?
they were. Yeah. From 2 fiscal years ago, we are down
Well,
$1 million.
Well, we just received a letter from, the bank a meeting or two ago that we had drawn more than double.
More than we would have from the other
No,
bid.
what they're
is
saying,
what-
this is what you've gone if you'd have taken the other bid.
Right.
Right.
That wasn't an increase in
Yeah, it wasn't that
what
we,
we gained.
No, but it's more than double what we would have had.
yeah. But I mean, if you look back over the last few fiscal years, our cash on hand is down quite a bit.
And that's due to several things. You want to go over that so people know what that's due to?
Do you have our gross receipts to date compared to last year and the year before?
Is that on one of these?
Yes.
How much you, off the top of your head, how much is are you projecting our gross receipts less than it was 2 years ago?
As of March 31st, no, I'm sorry. This is cash in the bank, is $1,028,000 less than what we were 2 fiscal years ago. Our receipts are at a little shy of little higher than 12 million. On your quarterly reports that you got this morning, that will tell you exactly what we've brought in so far this year.
Well, I guess my question should be then,
14.6.
what is it that you're noticing that's catching your eye, that's a great difference in our receipts?
I know we're down $1 million in grant funds, right? But that's a wash because
Well,
it's
that's
a
Right,
grant
yeah,
fund.
and when I
Yeah.
look at $1 million, I'm not including that, that doesn't include grant, because I mean, we could have a grant, I
Right,
mean, the health
with anything,
department
right.
grant has nothing to do with our books. It just funnels through. Fringe is a big part of it. I mean, in the past 5 years, Fringe has gone up $680,000. Salaries have gone up $300,000.
That's per year.
That's over a 5-year period.
And,
So
of course, your in lieu of tax payments have dropped dramatically in the last 2 years, Terry, so that income that we depended on, because for years, it was steadily going up, maybe not a lot, but increasing. Then all of a sudden, in the last 2 years, it's taken a dramatic decrease.
Right.
It's
Which,
like 100 and some odd thousand. So one,
225 last year.
yeah,
was it 225 last year? I had it like 165 or something.
Yeah, I mean, with the jail revenues dropping
Just
down.
a number of things.
Having to
It's not
increase that.
one.
Yeah, I mean, 2 fiscal years ago, we spent about $1 million out of the road fund that wasn't budgeted. We did some paving, we did,
Bought a building out there.
Yes, we bought a building, the maintenance building out there, we bought that and got it fixed up, that cost about $500,000. We also spent $500,000 for Draffenville sewer. Just your increase in your everyday things, your utilities, your fuel, your supplies that are affected by fuel, take a big toll, but we've also, done the aerial mapping. We started 911 subsidy. We bought the Barnes Grocery property. We've instituted a wellness plan and started paying out on it.
But our overall receipts.
But our overall receipts are remaining flat.
They're pretty much the same.
Yeah, they're,
Spending.
yeah, it's spending, yes.
Spending's gone up,
Yeah,
but your
spending-
revenues,
Revenues are staying about the same, and
I
what,
was sitting here the
What's-
other night when I was working on this, and I calculated about $750,000 since Bob and I have been elected that we've stopped. We're not spending.
Mhm.
We cut, immediately, we cut, summer workers program in half first year. You know, we
Right.
cut back on a number of things that calculates about $750,000
Yeah.
that we've cut out.
and all that's reflected in this budget that's still short, and it's sad, but that, all that gets eat up by, I mean, Fringe eat up 4 times that in 1 year. You know, that, maybe not 4 times that, but at least twice time, you know,
well,
2
your,
times that.
for instance, your retirement, we send a check to Frankfurt, about $145,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
Just for retirement alone, that's every month. Your insurance costs, your health insurance, your life insurance, your workman's comp, your, unemployment insurance, all that, that takes up, what, about 2 million? With everything included. But, and, you know, your fringe benefits just keep going up, and we really can't control that. These are things beyond our control.
But where receipts are remaining flat,
Everything else is going up.
everything else is going up, and the things that are going down, like say the jail revenues have gone down, road revenues, the truck license fee and the county road aid have gone up, but
Not
that,
enough.
you know, they're just offsetting one another. We're not getting anywhere. So your receipts are staying the same, but expenses just go up over time. I mean, if you're at home, you hadn't received a raise in 10 years, you're gonna start to hurt. You know, and that's where we've not raised taxes in a long
Well-
time. And I'm not suggesting raising taxes, but we are not getting any more in. We may get more in some areas, but less in others. And it's just getting to the point where some years we have lived off of more carryover than others, and then we've slowly eaten up that carryover to where now we're just even, and we've got to come up with a way to bring our head above water and get our receipts above expenditures.
We talked about this in our other budget workshop, but it's difficult for me, I don't know if it is for you guys, but it's difficult for me to come in and look at somebody's budget and know all the inner workings of it. You know, I do on some of them because I've worked more closely with them, and I can look at a program, or I can look at a line item and say, I don't think they need that. But others, we cannot. Refuse being one of them, and since they've moved their meetings to the same day and time that our meetings are, we have very little input in how they do things or anything else, but then we're tasked with assigning cuts to them, and that seems almost unfair because all we're looking at is a line item rather than a real understanding of what they do. But the state has a good understanding of all that, so why can't we have somebody come in and do an efficiency audit in our departments and tell us the best place to save money instead of having the 3 of us sit here and trying to, you know, take off line items that may or not be the most efficient way to make these cuts and have savings, you know. They may come in and show Russell a way to do something differently and save $100,000 as opposed to taking away $100,000 of his paving fund that he really needs. I don't know. I know that I don't know the ins and outs of all the departments, but the state does, and they offer it for free. Is that not something we could do? I mean, they come in and they go through all your departments and they show you where you can save, and they kind of give you a leakage report and they show you this is how you can save, you know.
Is
And
that the state auditor?
and I mean, if we're looking at $2 million,
I apologize. They barely have time to do an audit for us every 5 years. I can't imagine they have time to spend 2 weeks with every employee.
they were offering it at the
and figure
conference.
out
They
what
were
they
begging,
do.
call us, we'll come
I'm
help
not-
you, call us. You know how that goes. I don't know if they would, but it might be worth asking because like I said, you know, we're all very involved. We're all involved in different things. I know Bob's very involved in a lot of the different entities, and so is Terry, myself as well. But I don't think any three of us feel 100% confident saying we know every single line item on these budgets and exactly where we could make the most efficient cuts. You know, and sometimes even the supervisors don't. We've seen that. You know, sometimes they're so used to doing things a certain way that they're not doing it the best way. And it's just
Well,
a matter of.
I'd be happy to call Adam and see if he'll send a team in here and put him with every department. Spend a week, whatever, with each county official, each department. It'll be fine. But then again, are we gonna take his advice once they give him? I mean, I don't know who they send or how they do it or anything else. I'm like Emily, it's hard to get them down here on a timely basis to do an audit. And when they do, it takes them forever.
He said he's
Because,
got a separate team. I don't know. He was asking for people to participate. So in
I'll
light
give
of
him-
our situation, all we can do is ask. But you know,
sure
I think
give him a call.
it might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
How far off were you this morning, Judge, when you came to this meeting? You and Emily went over this the other day. How much did you say you? had
Well, we
done?
have identified, and let's just say, I mean, again, y'all are gonna have to,
I mean, just in this discussion.
just in this discussion, Friday, 3, 4, 5, $550,000, and then 80 for a 1-year, deal with so that's 630,000 that we've identified now. That gets you halfway there. We can talk about, you know, these small cuts and that's good and they'll mount up, but we're still 500,000, Emily, or more?
I'm the treasurer, so I want more, but.
Yeah, but
But, I mean, just in here, what we discussed here, I'm at like $980,000, 300,000 paving, 100 salt, 100 equipment, 50 bridges, $200 to the landfill, 150 in occupational tax reduction, and the $80,000
How much,
to
did you say the landfill's how much?
200,000. If we're, cause I'm
Okay.
offsetting that with a receipt.
what we're,
But
that
that still
again
puts
is,
us-
can you pay it back once we loan it?
There's
That's-
almost 30 at the sheriff's office between fuel and the Dawn's salary and then the postage they'll save. What's that, Sheriff? About 13,000? The reimbursement from Penny Ryle is like 10, and then 3,000 on the postage when they redo the tax bills. Is that like 13?
Yeah, I think that's what Tony said. It'd save us approximately $3,000 in
So-
postage that, over what we spent last year.
So 13 plus 14 minus the cost of your tanks, obviously, but that's 27,000 savings.
And so we're close to the million, but I mean, in my opinion, we need close to 2 million to have reserves to carry forward into the next year. Because if we spend the entire budget like we're spending this one, next year we will not have money to make it through from July till November when we get taxes.
I think that's where the efficiencies come in, though. You know, there's a lot of things that have been proposed that will save money, but it's not going to be overnight. And I know we need more in our reserves, but you know, there's a
Correct.
lot of things that we talked about. Just you know, and it's probably maybe $100,000, but you know, all of our line items for supplies and things like that have gone up. That I'm guessing probably are just estimates, you know, but if somebody's got a $9,000 increase in an office supply, I think they probably need to say what that's for. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that they're gonna try to make sure they've got the money they need just in case. And just in case right now is pretty much out the window,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would think.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of that in here. I've just kind of made a note of the different ones that have it, but you know, those sorts of things can probably be taken out, and it's not gonna cause anybody any harm or alarm anybody. You're not talking about layoffs, you're just talking about taking out some office equipment and
Well, and some of it,
supply
in
costs.
some cases, it may have been under budgeted prior,
Right.
or they may have had some one-time expenditures for this year. So I mean, those are definitely ones to look at. one of the areas Judge and I talked about, and I had mentioned to you all before, was building inspection. That program costs us money. It costs us, whatever we bring in, what fees they bring in, we pay exactly out that amount. Well, we're out,
The administrative
the
costs, yeah.
administrative cost of it, the CAT has a insurance, additional insurance that he has to carry that we have to pay for. He has trainings that he has to go to. They have supplies that they have to have, certificates and things like that. Then, we have to pay his fringe and Wendy's fringe as well on that. So, I mean, we're in the hole on that department. I did some research on it, over, and I have discussed this with Kat to some extent. Cat doesn't charge us for fuel or any of his expenses whatsoever. So he's really not flexible on his 75%. Now, however y'all choose to handle that, it's none of my business. But based off of that information, that leaves the other 25% that goes to Wendy. That I don't know that it did not happen on purpose. I don't believe at all. But I think somewhere along the lines between Robert and Wendy, that it got changed from 20% where we kept 5% to 25%. I don't know that 25%, we just had I don't know if you all noticed the one that goes through here. I don't know which plant it was, but one of the plants had a big addition, and that was $38,000. That split, I mean, it's close to 30-10 is what. I don't know that it's worth $10,000 to write a letter and get a check in and pay it out, and make sure that certification is handed out to the company. I think revising the way that 25% is used would be a better benefit. At least retain some of our portion of it.
How do other counties do it? Is it a 75-20 or what is the
I have no
standard?
idea, and it would depend on their planning and zoning and things like that. I mean, there would be a lot of different factors involved and somewhere else.
I'd be curious to know what other counties do and see if somebody's got a better way of doing it.
Can you call some of the other treasurers and see what?
Yeah, I can send out an email.
Judge, I know it's not a very popular spot to hit, but we may have to consider is training fringe. I don't know how many are drawing that, but 3 or 4,
I am.
3 or 4, 5. How many people draws it?
I think we are statutorily, if they participate in it, I think we're required to pay it.
I think that's right. If you sign up and get the hours in, I think we have to pay. It's a state, isn't that state statute?
Who do we have to pay though?
The elected officials.
Elected officials that complete the training.
I've never drawn a check yet. Never turned it in.
Right.
If you hadn't turned it in, then you won't.
I don't pay my own.
I don't
But-
either,
That's,
but anyway.
well, none of the 3 of us are drawing it.
I don't take it.
Well, that's about $5,000 a head.
But it's already reflected in the budget, is what. That's good, but it doesn't.
What do you mean already reflected in the budget?
I've already counted.
It's
I know
built in.
you all don't participate in it,
It's
so I've not
already out.
counted it in the budget.
I know it, that's
so
what I'm saying, but if we cut it out, I don't know how many more people drive, that's about $5,000 a head. And that could be considered, and then I noticed in our budget this year, we've increased travel by 10,000, we may have to consider leaving that where it is too.
That's one of the things I'd saw too, was travel.
We may
And
have to,
travel has mostly gone up due
we
to
have to may have to be a little more conservative about travel.
when you go.
$10,000 increase this year.
Where do you increase that?
Is it 10,000 total? Or
Yeah,
is
total,
it-
total,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's what I calculated the other day, best, if I remember correctly. About 10,000 over all entities. We may have to leave it as it was.
And then on the cemetery maintenance, is there a big project coming up that was there like a $15,000 increase for that? Is there a specific project they're needing to do with that?
That is based off of this fiscal year. I'd ask, Robert to tell me about what they were gonna spend on cleaning up cemeteries. Well, he told me $2,370. I think he misunderstood what I was asking for.
Gotcha.
And we have already spent well over that. That's one of my examples
And the
today.
overages?
So that I was just bringing that up to a realistic number.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things Judge and I discussed too, was bringing that down from 15 to say 10. You know, ask him what.
Then we can tell them, we're gonna cap it there.
So they know what they have to
So
spend for the
they
year?
know what they
Yeah.
have to spend, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Now granted, after the ice storm, we've had
Right.
probably more than usual, but if we cap it and say, now, here's what we got, we can't go over that, so if you do it all in 3 months, you know, you're done for the year.
Right.
You can go ahead and continue to identify and get estimates, but we can't, you know,
Right.
do anything. And I think they'll understand that, I'm sure.
Oh, I would think so.
And we've set an election today that's not reflected in this budget,
No.
correct?
No, it is.
It
It
is.
is?
It is. I do
Okay.
think I'm about 5,000 short. I do think I need to increase it by
Good.
5,000. That I had estimated HARP's expenses to be about 10,000. Tim says they're going to be about 15. So
Okay.
I do
I was
think I'm about.
concerned that we didn't
No,
have, we didn't
no,
have
I
enough
did-
in there.
I,
Okay,
I kept
good.
it at 2 elections. Special projects, we usually allocate $10,000 for Christmas. Christmas lights and things like that. That's where, I don't know if they, do they build or what do they? I was gonna wonder, could we cut that back to 5, cut it in half, or they just kind of maintain, replace bulbs, and, cause I know we buy a lot of bulbs and things like
Right,
that.
all as far as, well, in any new projects that they do, I mean, that's, we can maintain now and just do very few. Like
I
said,
think we can probably cut that in half.
Yeah, and plus, you know, we talked the other day about maybe redoing some shifts there on that too, to cut that down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've got guys at the park now that know exactly what's going on, so they're more involved than they used to be, so, you know, we fill in with
Yeah,
them.
time comes, we can work out some shifts
Right.
on that. Okay. The, and I'm
What
not
about the
understanding
county
you're
attorney
taking,
office supplies?
there, that's,
That is,
What was the new,
it's that NDAA insurance. There's the DRMS, the delinquent tax,
I thought maybe
Software
he's using a bunch of
maintenance.
paper.
No, no.
and it's delinquent tax software.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
that software we bought with
Oh,
the,
okay.
that we were included with the county clerk, where we're interactive on that, is what that is.
Speaking of delinquent taxes,
Oh, yeah. At the conference this weekend, at the commissioners' conference, several of the counties were talking about similar situations, and they suggested, pulling our delinquent tax file. And, we've got, and of course, you explained, this is 1.7 million in taxes that haven't been paid, and our portion is about 170,000 of that, but, maybe just kinda push this Jeff's way and,
Well,
And,
and here's what we're doing, you know, those, since we have the third-party purchasers, there are a lot more foreclosures. And we're actually getting more of that. You still got, over a 10-year period, you've got quite a bit. Now, that what's left is what the third-party purchasers haven't purchased.
right,
And so they're much harder, you know,
most
I've
of
got a
those
whole.
are, how many of those are non-collectible?
I don't like
Well,
LWD's
there's a
not,
whole group
right?
of them that I'm working on right now. I've got about 4 lawsuits pending over somewhere out at Pirates Cove that are a big mess. And I'm trying to get cleared up enough that I could even sell the properties. And, you know, technically you're spending more to collect that money than what you're gonna get back. But the thing about it, it's just like the old battery factory. It took a ton of research and work to get that out at Draftonville, but now it's now back on the it's, they're, you know, we've got the state in line on cleaning it up, and, the defuse are paying taxes on it again.
Profitable
So,
again.
there's a lot of these that, you know, we actually, out of my resources, I'm spending more than what we're gonna get, but for future, you know, the lemon house down here, when we did it, it only brought $1,000, and now it's a business. And, so, that's where that is, and like I say, what I can foreclose on are what these third-party purchasers don't want. So those are most likely to be uncollectible, but I do have, that, and part of this, software you're paying for is to allow us to check those, titles and run those records from the office. It keeps us from, me having to put somebody up here in the vault
Right.
to check
Research
those.
them.
So, if that answers your question, yeah,
Yeah, I
but there,
just thought it's, you know, just made sure we was at least occasionally,
well,
looking
I've
at
got, I probably have at least 10, 15 pending myself, and probably another 30 or 40 that are foreclosures that other people have filed on taxes.
One on the racetrack.
Hmm?
One on the racetrack, they ain't paid theirs probably in the last 5 years.
No,
It's on here.
that's not on the racetrack yet, but it's coming, I mean, it's, you know, I've got a list where I go out to 10 years and come back, and that's where we're at right
That-
now.
That's a big one right there.
Mhm.
Big dollar amount there.
So,
Again, you're talking about a lot of properties that are uncollectible, and those that are collectible, taxis, and this guy out of Hazel jumps on them pretty quickly, to try to buy those up, which,
Well, I mean, a lot of these in here we were looking through, I mean, these are people, several of them that can afford to pay their taxes, and I think it's unfortunate that they don't, and we're sitting here looking at cuts and possibly layoffs when, at the end of the day, you know, they just need to take care of their obligations.
I know there's situations
Sure.
that I know of that, you know, people didn't even realize that they owed it. When they buy a property and they don't get the tax bill
Yep.
that first year, then after that, they begin to pay their
Yeah.
taxes, but that first bill they haven't
See-
paid, and it's sitting out there, and they would pay it if we could make sure they knew it
Right,
was
and-
owed.
That's something that I address to the realtors when they have their breakfast every year.
Oh, yeah.
Do not tell those people that you prorated the taxes, because they're not paid until October. And I've asked them and asked them and asked them not to do that, and they don't.
well, for years in our contract with the revenue cabinet, when it was called the revenue cabinet, they had a provision where we could adjust those, for that 1 year's taxes. But we can still do that, but now, if those like that are getting bought up immediately,
Yeah, I know that.
and
That's
we
what
can't
happened to
adjust
the
them.
one I'm familiar with, it got purchased, and then
Right.
years later, it got returned to, and asked for payment, and the person he ended up paying it with interest.
And those purchasing those tax bills, you know, are profitable, because they're getting 12% interest,
12% interest.
plus all their costs and fees for doing it. And all they gotta do is hold them for a year. If they wanna hold them longer, they can, but they hold them a year, then they can foreclose.
Is this something we could make available online, kind of like the, was it the auditor's office did whenever they had all the unclaimed property? It was just kind of a neat idea because they made it available for people to see that they had a bill owing. I mean, is that something that we could do?
Well, you know that we send out notices.
I know, but if people move, I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
oftentimes the case when, like what Bob is saying, somebody's moved or they have acquired a new property?
Yeah, I mean, I can only go by the address that I get off
Right.
the system.
I just
but
was
yes.
curious. I mean, even if we only, you know, collected $10,000 or $15,000 off
I mean,
of
They're
it.
advertised.
we're in the
before they
process
even
of
go
looking at
anywhere.
a website ourselves. And, I was thinking about that for some child support matters, but that would be a good, database too.
Each year they're published, but they don't publish the past due ones, do they? It's
Right.
just for
It's
that
just the
year.
current.
Right.
All these past due ones, I would be surprised if there's not some of these folks that would see that and,
I bet you're
Pay
right.
it.
Come pay it.
Well, I mean, what we can do too is, I can see what I can, you know, as far as attempting to try to notify them that the foreclosure is imminent.
Mm-hmm.
And that might generate, I can try that. I'll
May
do
just
that.
be worth a try. I mean, we have a website, albeit it's not great at the moment, but we could put a document, a PDF up online, even on what we have now at the county's website, and invite
Yeah.
people to go
Needs-
check it out.
Needs to be searchable if they can. If they can do it, that'd be the best
That's
way.
true,
They
yeah.
can plug their
Okay.
name in and get a result.
Yeah, I don't know if they can make that PDF searchable on our
I don't know if they
current
could. They'd
website.
have to
I don't
enter
think
it
they can. I think they'd have to scroll through it.
Individually.
Russell, that
I mean,
piece
it
of
could be
property,
listed alphabetically or something like that.
piece of property we own outside of Hardin, how many acres is that?
Outside of Hardin.
Between Hardin and Murray on the old 641?
Used to be the old sporting goods.
Sporting club.
I don't really know.
We've kinda let it grow up again. We had it cut down and it's property we don't use, is what I'm
Right.
saying. Would you take a look and tell me what it'd take to get that kinda back in shape to see if, I don't know if anybody'd even be interested in buying it, but I think, we tore the old building down. It's just a lot. I think there's 3 or 4 acres or what it, Russell, or?
I'm not really I know we went up there and cleaned it up, but I didn't know it was ours or anything else. But I'll check into it.
Okay.
Judge, this ambulance hospital contract, I'd talked with Mark about that as much as 2 years ago, for some time, and I'd like for us to look into that a little more closely. We've mentioned it, and we kind of mention it and move on, but, he indicated to me and was showing me records that would reflect that instead of, when they took this project, it was in the red, and now it's not. So is that not, looks to me like that would be something we could consider with this $128,400 subsidy there.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanna look into, and I did ask Mark, when I talked to him the other day on the phone, and he was gonna mention to Mrs. Miller, is that her name? Who does their, Janice Miller, I think, is their,
Well,
I think the contract, I don't know when we went into this contract, Jeff, do you recall? But I think it's time we review it. Now, Mark tells me the same thing. They say, oh no, we're losing money. Well, we're still paying one employee. We're still buying all the rolling stock. We still own the building that we operate out of because they didn't wanna add that to the building over there. So the only thing they're getting is the third-party reimbursements and the money coming in. I do think it's time we take another look at it. Now, they may be able to show us that they are in fact losing money. Mark tells me they're not, but again,
he told me 2 years ago that they were not in the red any longer. They came from considerable distance in the red to even and above board. So that shows that we should relook at that. I think we need to really take a serious look at that. That's $128,000.
Well, it's actually
It's 200.
203,000
$203,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time you buy the
because
units,
the employee count. And
the
Well, that's
employee,
true,
and then the
there's
direct
another
subsidy.
160 for equipment,
Yeah,
so it's actually more like nearly $400,000.
This contract reflected on this budget is $128,400.
Well, but we offset, what we do is that total contract is
Yeah.
203,000, and then we take, the employee salary and any fringe that we pay any employees off of that
Right.
203, and then we give them a check
But that's what I'm
monthly for
saying,
the
now
difference.
that we can show, according to Mark, now I may have to eat crow, but I'm saying according to Mark's comments and records, that now we can show that they have moved from a deficit to in the black. And I think that, why would we not share in that?
well, that's a good point, and, I think Mark was gonna look into it, but I'll make a note for us to call Janice Miller. Who is their attorney now?
The hospitals?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm sure they'd want them in on it too, for us to all get together. And would you pull that contract, Jeff? I think it's a good idea, Terry, that we look into it. May not amount to anything, but we can see. All right, others?
There's been one since this.
There's been another one? Okay.
Well, by the way, since we're talking about the ambulance service, I got a call from the ambulance service folks, Missy, and they're having is it a dinner, Jeff, or a roast or something for Mark?
Next Tuesday.
Next reception or whatever. And they wanted to know if we would contribute to the cost. Since when Mark retired, we didn't do anything for him, have a retirement party. When he retired from the county, I'm talking about, and went to work for the hospital, we didn't do anything. And they want to know if we would participate in his retirement party, and I told him I'd bring it before the court. So whatever you want to do.
Did they say what they were talking about?
No, they talk like a couple of $100. I guess it's for refreshments and things like that, food, whatever.
I had a copy of that letter, and you brought it in here to me the other day at the workshop, I thought.
Did it have an amount on it?
I don't know, I didn't read it, you just.
Seems
had
like I
me with a
recall
copy of it.
$400,
$400.
but I,
Go call Missy and ask her what they need. We'll find out, we'll call and find out what they want. They want to do it. Well, they were asking for 400, so. That's what the request was.
That's about what. If I remember signing the bills, isn't that about what we've been doing with the road department employees at Majestics, give or take?
We
yeah,
use
give or take just a little.
It's about the time we do the meal and give a watch, it's about $400. Pretty close.
Fine with me.
I just need a motion from somebody to
I
do
make
it.
a motion, we.
We have a motion by Squire Anderson that we provide $400 for retirement ceremony for Mark Harrison from the ambulance service. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion
Third.
and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Medical care at the jail.
It's because of that, we've
news.
lost Dr. Ford and Ruby and picked up that contract.
So we've signed the contract, Bob, and
It's
that's,
gonna be a little more than I thought it was gonna be about a wash and then,
What did we add?
no, they had the
It
numbers.
wasn't gonna
A
be
little
a,
more.
he
They
was
had the
hoping to be
numbers.
a wash with a food contract
Right,
and
yeah.
losing
Like
that,
that's what- we haven't
and
done-
that, those numbers didn't get low enough to suit him.
No.
So he's gonna stay where he's been. He does have the chief cook now retiring, and we'll be replacing her with a cheaper labor because the other
but
one's
not
retiring.
a food contract.
But not a contract at this time.
Okay.
Did we figure out what the increase in food was?
No.
Food costs have been going up.
Just seems like a lot.
And we may
with-
need to talk to Roger. I mean, because it's been a long time since he and I met. And
And I liked what they said this weekend at the conference. They said because jails are costing so much across the state, that they recommend a monthly or a quarterly report from the jailer so that we know, what's going on and how many inmates they have and how many they're down and that sort of thing. That's what they recommended. So I would appreciate it so that I know some of the things that he needs or, just what the status is.
Monthly or quarterly report?
Either one, do you think that's something you all would like to know more than just at budget time? Like how many prisoners we have and how many inmates we're down and that sort of thing? I think it'd be helpful for me just to
Well, any information like that you have is helpful if it's, we don't, as long as it's not bogging the whole system down, I mean, keep it in a perspective we can
Quarterly
deal
enough,
with.
quarterly enough.
I think so. I just know a lot of times we were asking Emily questions that she really didn't know. You know, we were having to transfer 100 or 100 or 100,000 and we would ask her questions and she really didn't know why that need was there. She just knew it was a need. So it might help us as we're transferring funds over.
So we're looking at a quarterly report from the jailer, amount of prisoners, any up or down, any extraordinary.
Yeah, just anything that's gonna cause a fluctuation, like I said, because we've been asking Emily these questions, and a lot of times she doesn't know. She just knows that she needs to transfer $100,000, but Roger might be able to come in and say, here's what's going on, you know, here's how many I have, here's their delay in payment, or what have you.
All right. Other cuts.
What's the $5,000 for Tom Bigby Waterway? What do we do with that?
That's a contribution we've made for several years. We don't have to do that. Matter of fact, till we can get a better budget outlook, I would suggest we don't do it.
I put that down as something we might consider.
Yeah, I'd already talked to Emily about that.
Emily, you've got the deputy judge executive on here. Is that something that you guys were thinking we might not have to fund
Well,
anymore?
that's something that I'm willing to take off if everybody else is willing to take some off. I mean, you know,
What, this may sound crazy, I've never seen him. What purpose does this
well,
position?
statutorily, you have a deputy judge executive in each county in the state of Kentucky. Mr. Howard has been our deputy judge executive for a number of years. When I was sick, he was here every day. For how many months, Melanie? 2.5 months.
So they just come in your absence,
Right.
basically, and handle your daily affairs for you and that sort of thing. So what happens if we don't have,
Well,
a
I'll just
deputy
make do
judge.
without one. But again, I don't, you know, I just don't want the road department in my office to take all the hits.
well, and I felt like we probably needed to clarify a little bit, because all we have for the road department is last year versus this year, and it'd probably be helpful for me to see 10 and 11, because I don't know, but for instance, like in the paving, I know we had cut it last year down to 500, and then, you know, you had budgeted for an 800.
Years before, we
slightly more.
did between 800,000 and $1 million in paving and repaving each year. That's to keep up with our
Right.
maintenance. We have how many roads, Russell?
We got 450 miles.
450 miles. And we would try each year, with the help of the commissioners, to identify, say a road is paved 5 years ago, 6 years ago, beginning to get some wear, beginning to get some cracks. So if you don't resurface them an inch and a half, then you're gonna end up in a few years going back and doing an entirely new job and not just a repair. So, you know, we're getting by deferring maintenance on some of these roads, okay? But some have gotten to the point, Beale Road, I guess, an example, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah.
I don't think you could wait another year. Terry, there was one in your district that we identified, you wrote it down, I can't remember. Was it New Harmony? Yeah, there's, but in each one of you, I mean, you see in your,
Retirement
Yeah.
Circle,
so,
Calvert City Road.
Calvert City Road. I
So,
think we can
you
pretty
know
well
the
get
ones
ours.
that-
Yeah,
but,
right. Like in road materials, I know that you'd asked for 250 versus 150. Was that 150 already a cut last year from what you all normally spent?
I think everything was cut.
yeah,
Emily, can you get us a 2010-11 on the road department? Because it's hard for me, because last year apparently there were already some cuts in place. So it's hard for me to go from last year's number to this year's if they were already cut last year. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can get
We have deferred buying like trucks, as Russell pointed out. Our tractors and mowers, Bob, we went 3 more years
Yep,
when we first started talking about needing to replace them.
yep.
We stretched them, till we felt like we had to start replacing some things. You can't just,
Can't put it off.
can't put it
Yeah.
off anymore, you know?
What hurts the road department? All of its equipment's a high dollar piece of
Right.
machinery.
Yeah.
When we budgeted for some equipment already out of this budget, that are you close to getting that?
No.
No.
Back to that provision you, on the office supplies, that, apparently that, insurance premium, my NDAA insurance premium is now 4,500. What I'll do, I think I can access some other funds from the state to pay that. I'll just take 4,500 out of there. I don't know that should be your place to pay that entire thing.
Anything else you wanna offer up?
You think,
Anything else you wanna offer up?
I might be able to split the Westlaw bill with you. Cause I utilize that with I could utilize some state funds towards that too.
The law library? Is that what that is?
No, that's.
No,
Sure.
no, that's separate. This is just my legal research account.
Gotcha.
Which would be in part of his office supplies too.
Right.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, we call the court back into session. Did you bring new information in, or? did you
I
do-
brought, Misty had asked for fiscal year 10-11.
Oh,
And
okay.
I brought her 10-11 and 9-10.
Okay. We have our illustrious supervisor for a 911 operation, Luby. What words of wisdom do you have for this court today?
Well, I don't know that I have many. I've been talking to Emily earlier about some of our issues with the 911 phone controller, and we've been trying to put funds back to replace it because it's no longer supported to be replaced with replacement parts if there's an error with it. I've been trying to research some options from some different providers, and the answers I'm getting on numbers I don't like. They're kind of pricey. I tend to believe from using the same brand of controller that we have now. Got some preliminary ballpark figures. It's probably going to be between $150,000 and $175,000, and we're just trying to find out some more information. I've got some survey information. I'm trying to get in contact to provide them with the contractor. And I'm also going to try to seek out and see if there might be a lease option or something instead of purchasing equipment that maybe we would be better off.
But right now, we've got money in reserve that we're building up for that, Lube, right?
That's why we've been trying to put that
Yeah.
back, because knowing that frankly, we have a service contract to provide maintenance for it, but I've been in contact with him in the past few months. He's told me that, they continue to service it, but if we received a power surge or a lightning strike or something like that would come to that controller, that the company that manufactures that controller doesn't make the replacement parts for us. And we'd have to either try to find a piece in inventory from somewhere in old stock or something like that. And they've encouraged us to look at finding something that's at least supported. So I'm kind of in favor of that too. I think it's only a good thing for us to do to make sure that, you know, they told us if our system did go down, they would rent us a system until we found something, but who knows how much that would be.
Sure.
So I really hope it never happens.
But let's just say, everything's gonna go okay for another year. Will our reserves by this time next year be built to the point you think will be ready to, can
That's-
be able to buy a replacement?
That's my hope, and if we
And
can
we're
make-
talking about the whole panel, right, Lou?
Right, it's the control
Right.
that operates it. It's actually, frankly, the phones that we actually have in the 911 dispatch center, they will not work with the new system. So that's actually included in that cost.
Right.
To
And
replace
how old
it.
is our system, Lou?
That system has been there, bits and pieces of it, probably some of it since close to the inception of the 911. So we've got
Mr. Morgan, and he's dead and gone, but Mr. Allen Morgan, I believe, installed that system for us, or
right,
was our,
and that's been over 20 years ago.
at least. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Or close. It's
But
close to
we're getting there. I mean, you've got,
right.
right now, from what I'm seeing, you've got about 140 something, in your reserve,
It's close to that.
close to that. But we still don't see any relief, or at least I don't. Maybe you're talking to Joe Barra more than I am, I think,
The-
but do you see any relief coming, Lou?
The only thing I see, and I even made a mention this to our board meeting last month, is I know that the state CMRS board is seeking to get more funds from some of the prepaid phone carriers that haven't been paying CMRS. That may give us a little bit more money divvied out to the counties, but you've got other legislation that's been going through the General Assembly to deregulate some of the wireline phone services, and that could cause us a problem. Potentially, I mean, if more people obviously will.
But the simple answer, they will not listen to, and that's increasing your cell phone rates to be commensurate with your landline rates. If that happened,
We wouldn't be here.
we're out of trouble.
Exactly.
But I preach that, so has other county judges. I know your counterparts across the state have done the same thing.
Exactly.
And why they will not listen to that, I don't know.
I don't
But anyway. But other than that, you're in pretty good shape, other than hoping
We're-
nothing goes down.
That's our biggest hope, is that we keep things operational without having equipment failures and things of that nature. Because that's where our expenses.
If we get that new roof on, we'll feel a whole lot better. Just to be quite honest
I
with you,
kind of
because
get
all the
religion about
electronics.
that, worried about if something's gonna cause some water damage between now and then, and I hope not, and I don't, so far we've been fortunate, and maybe that'll continue to be the case, so.
I'm hoping they'll start in that section first, replacing and get that done, then move on elsewhere. Because, that's a bunch of delicate, electronics right there.
Anything else?
I just want to encourage you all to strongly consider, when tax rates come about, to strongly consider looking at taking that 4% rate, or at least the compensating rate.
It's actually not 4%, it's 0.04%.
Right, yes. The revenues need to go up to maintain the services that we maintain. I mean, cuts do need to be made and can be made, but we can't live off the same money forever.
I don't think we can live off the same money, but I think along the way, there's things that could have been done differently that would have resulted in a different position that we're in today.
And I think had we been taking the rate for some time now, we wouldn't be in
Wouldn't
this
be in
position.
this situation.
So, I mean, I think,
I know, but you can only tax people so much. I mean, and
and I'm not,
last time, this is a issue for me, because I know when I worked at the Tribune, they did the story, I didn't do it, our editor at the time did, but I think it was like between 4th and 12th highest tax in the state. That was their story, and that means something to the people of this county, to be taxed and to even be talking about a tax when, quite frankly, I mean, I didn't even hear about budget concerns until last year when the sheriff walked in and said he had a shortage. I have watched this fiscal court for the last 5 years, and I've never heard budget shortage, budget crisis, anything. I mean, a couple months before I was elected, we were giving out $2 an hour raises to park employees, so it's a little hard for me to even swallow being here a year, but to talk about a tax increase is something I can't even begin to think of right now. That's just where
Well, and on top of that, you had several purchases, one-time purchases, one-time outlays that you hadn't had. 500,000 for the sanitation district number 2, 400,000, I think, for a building out at,
I think by the time we got it finished, it was 5, we were
about $500,000 on that building. Time we got it refurbished. We paid $80,000 for a building out at, John Ed Barnes's grocery. I mean, there's a number of things that have accounted for this, but
Sanitation District 2, that was a loan.
that's a loan, but it hasn't been paid back, and they don't have, until they can get the money to run their lines to the high school and Christian Fellowship, they're not gonna have the money.
And that's what I was trying to decide. That was gonna happen, we thought, anyway, and I guess they didn't get any legislative funds or anything.
They've applied every time that, it's come up.
Yeah, that needs to get done.
But,
The school wants
you know.
we've got that now sized, that'll take both high school, or both schools, and can't get the line.
And you talk about, I would question, we're not the 4th highest tax county in the state of Kentucky. I think I can get all the numbers to show that, but, the school board takes a increase every year. And I haven't heard any criticism from anybody, about that. So, it's just, what do we want to pay for and what do you want to cut out? We'll cut out whatever you want to cut out. But bear in mind, when you do that, it's a service or something that we're not gonna be able to offer. I'm open to any suggestions that you have, as long as they are fair and equitable across the board and not just, one certain area.
I totally agree. I think somebody coming in that can show us efficiencies, I think is gonna be a big part of it, in my opinion at least.
Well, I'm gonna call Adam Elam first thing in the morning and see how quick he can get a team down here. If he's got people wanting to come out and do some efficiency studies, we'll let him hit every department we've got. Be more than happy to. We did one down at, the health department several years ago, but it cost $15,000, to do it. But it showed a lot of things. I mean, it did not immediately, change a lot of things, but more than anything else, it changed attitudes, I think.
And at the end of the day, if we had to raise taxes, then I think we could at least say to the taxpayers that we've done everything possible. Everything from looking through, tons of delinquent taxes, to looking at every department for cuts, to going as far as an efficiency audit before we say this is our last recourse.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. All right, anything else before we, because we'll probably need to meet again after Emily and I sit down and go again.
We're gonna make a decision on a park employee, or we're not.
Well, you're cutting and then all of a sudden you're talking about adding,
That's fine.
and we may have to talk about, layoffs, and that's
I thought a while ago when I suggested that the judge was gonna talk to, would look into the possibility with Tech, maybe of reducing the number of,
Yeah, I'll meet with Tech and Brock.
maybe that would take care of the
One of
immediate
those
problem in
persons,
the park.
take
'Cause
one of
he says
those.
he needs someone like yesterday, that would solve the problem if we did it temporarily. And if it's a possibility, I'm not saying that it is, but I'm saying.
Right,
we
I'll
could
see.
We could check into that and see.
Okay.
That would help Larry, and then that, when we might not have to hire someone right away. At least we'll get through this budget.
Well, we'll look into every possibility, and I'll talk with Tech in the morning. So I'll see what we can come up with on that end, and I'll try to call everybody tomorrow after I talk with Tech and Brock.
I mean, we need to resolve his issue. If he needs someone, we surely can find some way to cover that.
Yeah, well, that's just, it's one of those situations, it's not pleasant at all, but, we've got some other things that we'll be looking at. Anything else?
I make a motion to adjourn, Judge, maybe you wanna set another meeting now, or you wanna just call?
Well, why don't you give me a day or two to kinda go through this, and then probably sometime next week, Terry, if that'll be all right. All right?
We can continue.
Yeah,
Are
I'll
you
be
gone
out
next week?
wait a minute.
I'll be an instructor at the Mississippi Fire Academy.
He just lands here, but.
It's just lights up once in a while.
Because we have to,
I'll be
we have
back
to
on-
present, we have to have something to present the following Tuesday.
Yeah,
back
we,
on
cause we,
Saturday.
okay. Well, maybe the Monday.
Monday.
Maybe Monday before the next court meeting, because we do need to send the budget in
Yeah.
for form and classification, like we always do. We can always make amendments, changes, or whatever. But bear in mind, I've gotta send the balanced budget in. We can't send a budget up there that's not gonna balance, because they're gonna throw it back in your face. Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed, no. Meeting's adjourned.